This is the facility, as you can see it. Look, it's a big facility, though, right? So then I also want to see, but I do want to get back to this guy, Ian Bick. I think his name is Ian Bick. I do want to get back to Ian Bick because he was there as well. So let's hear more about some stories where Ian Bick was talking about how when he was getting housed there, and he also went through that little journey through Brooklyn. He came from, I think, where was it he was at? Can't remember, if it was Virginia or so, where he came through from a first location, first where he came from. But he ended up going through Brooklyn, just like Diddy went, and then going to Fort Dix right after. You know what I mean? And he actually got some inside plug to let him know that he was going to Fort Dix because he had some kind of a plug inside that actually let him know when he didn't have to get that information. So everybody, make sure you're dropping a like, make sure you're sharing the video. Hopefully this is informative, but I just want to see for us, for ourselves, like, what is it like? Let's hear some stories. Let's see the facility. Let's look at it. Let's see the grounds, whatever the case may be. Let's just start figuring out what this looks like on paper, at least on screen. If Diddy gets his request granted, if he has a whole nother thing that he got to deal with, and the judge gives him a whole nother place, and maybe his family got to travel farther, does that help his rehabilitation process? You know what I'm saying? You in jail, son. You done did a crime, so nobody cares if you feel good or nothing. You're going to have to rehabilitate. But I'm just saying, if you really want a person to rehabilitate, and he's in a close facility, close to his children, he could get a chance to see his children, and he's in all of these RDAP programs, and he's doing all the things that he has to do, treatment programs and such, maybe this can be an easier road to rehabilitation. So tell me what y'all thinking about that. Let's get back to the video, and we're going to actually see what Ian Bick is talking about.
The Bureau of Prisons, Federal Bureau of Prisons, was there to pick me up and transport me. And I go back through the loading dock, and same process, only this time you're on a giant bus, and there's inmates from different prisons, from different detention centers, from county jails, all there, waiting to be transported to the next designation. And they picked me up, and they actually brought us to Danbury, my hometown, the Danbury Federal Prison, the notorious Danbury Federal Prison. And I thought I was getting off there, but I wasn't. They were picking up more inmates, dropping off inmates, and then back on the road, and we were heading to Brooklyn, the Brooklyn Detention Center. And that was a whole, another experience, going to one of those large tower detention centers. And the Brooklyn Detention Center mirrors the Wyatt Detention Center. It's a pre-holding facility, waiting trial, waiting sentencing. This time you're given, brown full jumpsuits. And I was celled up with this guy who was like a snitch for the cartel, at the Philadelphia cartel, for like 5 or 6 years. And he was sentenced to there because that was the only place he was safe. At these detention centers, no one's really checking paperwork because no one has paperwork to check. Everyone's kind of like in limbo. There's not really much violence. Occasionally there's a fight or two, but it's the same thing day after day. You're waking up, getting out of your cell, walking around these units. You could go crazy. I was lucky. I found some guys that I played with Monopoly with every day. There was a Monopoly board, and we just sat there for hours playing Monopoly, and that helped pass the time. And I didn't have any visits. I just had phone calls. And what was keeping me hopeful and kind of keeping me going was that my judge was now that I got sentenced, he was able to file an appeal. You have to wait till you're sentenced to the Second Circuit Court, two appeals. One, notice of appeal for my case and the verdict, and two, for bond pending appeal. So it's common that you could, possibly, if you have a good appeal case, that you could get bond pending appeal. And we were confident that I would get that. And, every day I was calling him, hey, have you heard any news? What's going on? Because I'm just itching to get out. And I just, I remember making a plan saying, like, this is what I'm going to do. Like, I'm going to go work at Whole Foods. I'm going to do this, or I'm going to start this. And I just really wanted to, I just wanted to be successful. I knew it, like, in my mind, success would be like the best revenge. And so, that kept me alive. And then 3 weeks later, I'm finally transferred to my designation, which my attorney had told me on the phone that none of the counselors or anything will tell you. They're not allowed to tell you. But my attorney knew someone in the BOP who said I was going to Fort Dix, and he's like, it's a camp, nothing to worry about. You're going to a camp. Fort Dix is a good facility. And so when he told me that, I started asking people, hey, what do you know about Fort Dix? And people are like, it's sweet. It's a great spot. You're in good hands. I met another person.
Sounding like a good spot, right? He hearing it from multiple people saying, listen, it's cool. You could just go there, get your little joint down, you know what I mean? And do what you need to do. Maybe that's a good sign. Maybe that's why Diddy's pushing for it, besides the location of where it's at and the distance from maybe New York City or maybe close to Jersey where some of his family live. Most likely he has homes in Jersey, or his family does. So I think it'd be easier for the family to get there. But as far as the facility goes, it doesn't sound like such of a bad facility. It's federal prison, so we know jail is jail. Don't get it twisted. But so far, it's not sounding that bad. Let me know what y'all thinking about it. If you know about Fort Dix, if you know anybody that been in Fort Dix, let us know what you're thinking about. Let us know what y'all think Diddy could be facing. Let us know what you think about him, the appeals. What do you think about the time breaking down, good time, all these other little factors? Maybe could chip off some months away, and maybe the sentence won't be as long as he's even thinking. Let me know what you're thinking about that.
So I was like, oh, wow, great. This is going to be good. And the bus picks us up again early morning. This is like early December now, 2 months after my bond got revoked, and about a month and a half after sentencing. And we get to Fort Dix, and they stop at the camp first, and they let off like the 3 or 4 people that were going to the camp. I'm like, I think I'm supposed to be with them, and they're just not saying anything to me. And we drive off, and now we go to the low. And the difference between like the camp and the low is the camp is there's no fence. I think actually at Fort Dix there's like a small perimeter fence, but at most camps there's no fence, very free. At the low, you're surrounded by barbed wire, high security fences. It's a different ball game. And so I was taken off the prison bus with all the rest of the guys and brought to Fort Dix, where you're put through the same process, hours and hours, and then you're finally released to the yard. They have a building, they call it like the A&O building, for orientation, and that's just for individuals who are brand new, who are just getting off. And there's 2 sides to Fort Dix. So Fort Dix has 5,000 inmates pretty much on their compound. There's an east side and the west side. So when you get there, you're on the west side in this building, and it's an old army barracks that they converted into a prison. So it was very different than what I was at before. Like, this literally looks like a college campus. There's 12-man rooms, 6 bunk beds, a big square table, some chairs. Everyone has a plastic chair and a little like locker, like as tall as this chair, with 2 doors where you keep your commissary. You could get a lock for it, this and that. And some of the other guys, like the Spanish guys and the black guys that I had arrived with, were, other guys would come up and greet them. They would give them a bag of like flip-flops, toothpaste, like a care package. No one was coming up to me, and I didn't realize why no one was coming up to me at the time, but I was just like, all right, maybe these people know each other. And it was common, when you get to a yard, your people, would come up to you, and they would give you a care package, and they would say, hey, like, you have, 30 days or whatever to show your paperwork, that you're not a chomo, not a rat. Do you agree to these terms? And then they'll give you your care package. And if you take that care package and your paperwork's not good, you're going to get beat up, and you're going to get checked in, which means, sent to the SHU.
Listen, like he said, as long as you got to show your paperwork, if you ain't a chomo, is the word he used, or a rat. You know what I mean? So, if you're doing some weird activities, people will make you a target in there. All right. We understand Diddy got money. We get that too. So that factors in Diddy's favor. But listen to what I'm saying. Even though Diddy never had those men ever touch him, he wasn't touching the men, at least none of